Alright guys, let's talk about fucking Sleepwalkers, since I just talked about Strays a couple weeks ago, which is another funny cat killer movie. Except this one is immensely more of a what the fuck, like, movie. Like, Stephen King always, whether his stuff is good or bad, for the most part it's always memorable. It's always something that I can talk about, and this one for sure, Sleepwalkers is definitely one of his most fascinatingly bad. And I don't think it was a book. And correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it said on the DVD when I've seen it before that it said like it was written for the screen. So I guess it wasn't even a book. But man, this is such a weird ass movie. And I think I'm gonna start at the beginning of the movie. Where it's another location. It's from the rest of the movie where like these two characters were, and then go to another location. But the first location they go to, there's freaking cats hung up in the air for some reason. And then there's a dead girl that's like just a skeleton, and like Mark Hamill is a cop, and it's so weird and so out of left field. And then it cuts to the location that they go to for the rest of the movie, Indiana, where this couple, and this is gonna sound, if you've seen this movie, then you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. But if you haven't seen this movie and I'm explaining this to you now, you're gonna be like, "What the fuck? Like, this is such a weird ass movie." But it's about these two characters, this guy and this girl, this boy and his mother, and they turn into sleepwalkers, which is a variation of a cat, kind of like a vampiric kind of thing, where they feed on female virgins. Like they have to kill them to live, and the mom is dying, and they have incest sex, the son and the mom. And like there's a scene where like they're having sex, and then you see in the mirror, and it's their sleepwalker cat form. And it's so awesome, and just how fascinatingly bad it is. Like, it is so interesting to watch, because it just, like, I don't know how, like, I know he's, like, I don't even know what Stephen King's mindset was on this, because he does have a lot of books and movies where it's like, it can be really unintentionally silly, or maybe he wants it to be like that. But man, this one just is fascinating with stuff like that. Just how they're a couple, and she looks like she's close to his age, which is funny. I don't get that connection either. But but that made it, because at first, before he mentioned that she was his mother, they were dancing around to this song that plays throughout the whole movie, this one little tune. And I thought, oh, they're just a couple. And then you realize that they're mother and son having sex with each other. I'm just like, okay. It's not surprising for a Stephen King thing, but I was just like, wow, okay. That's crazy. And it came off as really awkward, just with their interactions, with the guy's interaction with the girl, the main girl who they're gonna feed to the mom, that he's trying to get. All these interactions with everybody is so strangely, like, the way they speak to each other is just so off. And I think it's just on purpose, but it just, or maybe it's not even on purpose. Like I said, I have no fucking idea, like, what was Stephen King thinking? Did he want this to be unintentionally silly, or it just came off that way? Because there's a moment I will talk about soon that, like, how can you not make that unintentionally silly? Like, that's the only way you could make this go. But anyways, I'll talk about that thing soon. And they're like the halfway point in the movie, it's like it's not super over the top. Like, it's got the weird incest stuff, but when it gets to the moment where the kid is being chased by the cop, then it becomes what the fuck territory, more so than just seeing them have the mom and the son have sex with each other. It it gets into way more what the fuck territory because the cop chases after the boy, the sleepwalker kid, and for some reason, like, there's a cat in the cop's car and they're neck and neck with each other. The cat looks at the guy as a sleepwalker. Then the guy changes his face, morphs his face into like 20 different things, into like a baby, into a woman, into a little toddler, into a cat. Like, it, and literally nothing is mentioned about why. Like, they're shapeshifters, I guess, but that's the only thing we get from that. I guess they can shapeshift into other stuff, but I'm just like, okay, that just, it doesn't explain it. It's just so odd. But that scene with the cop is just so crazy. And then it gets even more cheesier because the cop, whenever the kid like grabs the cop's arm, breaks it off, and says, "People should keep their hands to yourself. Oh wait, and here's yours," because he ripped off his hand. And lines like that, like, you have got to have a point to say that this was trying to be purposefully silly. But every website I go on, this movie was marketed as a straight horror movie, but I'm like, how can that be interpreted in any way other than silly or unintentionally silly or just incredibly silly on purpose? But like I said, I don't know what he was thinking, like how he perceived this movie, so I really don't know. And he didn't direct this. Mick Garris did, and so it's not like Stephen King directed it, but he wrote it for the screen, I guess. So I don't know. It's just so strange, but it's just so awkward and odd and just so in how silly it is. It's like you can't look at it unintentionally like this way. You gotta look at it as like a comedy. Like, and even if they tried to make it unintentional, like, how could they not have noticed that this would be this silly? And it just, and then later it gets even more silly because the cats are their mortal enemies, the sleepwalkers, since they're typically type of cats too, like they're human, like hybrid vampiric cats. The sleepwalkers, apparently, because they look like them a little bit. And it gets even more crazier because whenever the girl character, who the sleepwalker boy is trying to get to the mother to feed to her, they go on a date, and then like he shows his true colors, and she knows he's like something else. He's a sleepwalker, but she didn't know what he was called, but she knew he's something deep demonic. And he chases after her, and she gets a cat and throws it at the guy, and then the guy starts steaming. Like, he literally just starts steaming. Like, and I guess they're allergic to cats. Like, so they start steaming whenever the cats get on them and grip them and just start scratching them. They just start steaming and, like, they're gonna light on fire. What? Like this, again, it's just so strange, and just how it doesn't really explain itself. It's just like, oh, he can just shapeshift to anything, to any face, any person in the world, and then they will melt or burn on fire if like a cat gets on them. Like, a lot of this stuff is just out of nowhere, but that's what makes it so interesting, because it is so out there and so strange that it just really, it's a fun watch. It is really a fun watch. It's just hilarious in how awful it is. Like, it's terrible, but it's hilarious. And I just, man, I wrote down some notes because it's like, how can I remember all this goodness in like just rewatching it? I don't know how I could. And then like, there's this one scene, the funniest scene in the movie, because like I was saying throughout this video, like, how can you make this unintentionally funny? You have to know this was comedic, because this character, whenever the mother starts showing her true colors to this family close to them too, she kills them in their house. But there's this one guy who calls the police, and you know what she kills him with? She kills him with a fucking corn cob. She grabs a corn cob, stabs the guy in the back with it. And that is the funniest scene in the movie because it just made corn cobs look like the most unintimidating thing ever, and of course they aren't intimidating anyways because they're fucking corn cobs, and like she stabbed somebody with a corn cob in the back, like, and it makes it look really intense, like it actually like injured him. Like it just cracks me up, and just what were they thinking again? Like it just, like I said, so fascinating because it's just so out there. And then, like, you also get a young Ron Perlman in this, too, I forgot to mention. And he's more prevalent in the end of the movie. But I just wanted to point that out, that he's in it. And I didn't even realize he was in this, just rewatching it. And I cannot explain the ending of this movie. Like, I mean, I guess I can, but it's still not going to make any logical sense. I mean, this movie's not trying to be logical anyways, but you know what I mean. So the mother freaking gets attacked by the cats. There's like 100 cats just go up, they get on her, and she melts. She just not melts. She just gets lit on fire, and she just loses. Like, I mean, she just like burns to death because these cats are on her, and it's just so. Like, it was already established in the movie that the cats do that, like, because the guy Sleepwalker gets steamed on, or gets steamed up because the cat attacks him earlier. But it just, I don't know, it just, in the end of the movie, it made it seem so much more silly than the other time that it happened with the cat. And then, like, the girl survives, like, the main girl that they were trying to get. But, like, that's it. The movie just ends. And there's just, like, I mean, that sounds pretty simple now, right, when I mention that. But, like, it's, watching it, I guess, watching it on screen is just so much more random. I just don't get it. Like, But that's why this movie is so awesome, though, because this movie is just so out of left field. But it's so interesting. Just such a fascinating, terrible Stephen King movie. And there's a lot of bad ones, or a lot of really, really odd and strange ones. And this is definitely one of the strangest that I've seen. I haven't seen all of his movies, but man, this is one of my favorite bad ones, though. Like, I haven't seen The Langoliers, which I do want to see because of that terrible CGI. I've seen clips of that, a lot of clips of the movie, but I haven't seen it in full. But this is just one of those fascinating Stephen King movies that I had to talk about. And watching it, just, wow, just what an entertainingly bad time.